world-class vision, world-class this.
I'm a real leadership geek, honestly. I've spent my whole career reading books and chatting to people.
I just find the whole thing and the announcement, the way it's been announced, bizarre.
If you could move away from a model where teachers are so intensely focused.
Good morning. It is Wednesday, the 18th of June, and you are listening to The Morning Break on Teachers Talk Radio with Liz and Kate. It's our inaugural show. So, Kate, do you want to kick things off? Introduce yourself.
Hello, I'm Kate. I've been teaching and tutoring for over 20 years. That sounds a lot. And I used to work with Liz.
We did. We worked together. Gosh, it's actually been quite a while ago now, hasn't it? It was over 10 years, which has just gone by in a blink. But that's life, I suppose. So I too have been an English teacher for 20 years this year. It's a statistic I don't like to say out loud because it reveals how old I am. But I have reached the age where I take my own tea bags everywhere. So that's kind of revealing, isn't it? Kate, we work in education. We've worked in education for a really long time. That's what we're here to talk about. We're here to talk about schools and life in schools. Everyone's been to school. What do you remember about school?
Okay, so because it was a while ago now, my school days are a bit of a blur. In some ways, that's a good thing. But what I do remember are things like eccentric teachers with crazy names. We had a teacher called Mrs. Cross, which I thought was great. We had a PE teacher called Miss Joint. So just funny teacher names. Also, those stinky science rooms, you know, the ones that smell a bit like sort of methane. So I can't even remember my science lessons. I don't remember individual English lessons on grammar or punctuation or anything like that. But what I do remember is school trips and funny experiences with my friends, I suppose. How about you?
I think that's the thing about education, isn't it? I think we put so much, particularly now, we put so much emphasis on what's going on in individual lessons that we forget that so much of education actually comes outside of the classroom. It's called enrichment for a reason. Like the things that I remember from school are the completely out of the ordinary lessons. Like shout out to my history teacher, Mr. Bird, getting us all to tip our tables up and do trench warfare.
How did that work exactly? Did you duck down behind the desk?
Yeah, that's what we did. That's exactly what we did. So he got us to flip all our tables over, revealing all the gum on the underside. Delicious.
Oh, yeah.
And he would tip them up, and then he got people at the front to tip them up the other way. And he talked to us about how you would make progress. So you would come out of the trench and you'd go over the top, and then you'd try and take the territory. And I remember that gosh, that was probably coming up 30 years ago now, and I remember that so strongly. So it's that, and school trips, like you say, like the out of the ordinary experiences are the ones that you remember. So obviously that gives us a nice little segue into what we're going to talk about today. So our topic is school trips, jollies or jolly hard work. This came to my attention because a few weeks ago, a former politician was interviewed, and she said that school trips had no educational value whatsoever. Yeah. They're increasing emotionally based school absence, just things that I'm not sure I fundamentally agree with. She called them jollies.
I completely disagree with that. Completely 100%.
It's an interesting topic. I think school trips have they've entered discussion quite a lot. I've seen a lot of parent forums about them. Let's turn it into a GCSE style question. So a former politician said school trips have no educational value. Discuss. What do you think, Kate?
Okay, so educational value. Well, if you think about life skills and resilience and things like that, on residential trips, children learn to budget their own pocket money, so budgeting skills, confidence, friendships, the social side, navigating relationships with new friends, new people, learning about new cultures. You mentioned remembering the desks being turned upside down. Think about a lot of our learning. It's so sort of restricted to children sitting in seats behind a desk being talked at, whereas they're out in the world experiencing all the sounds, the senses, the hustle and bustle. So they're getting all that enrichment for learning as well. So there's so much you can learn on a school trip. And you can learn about geography, history, obviously drama. There's so much learning about how writers get their inspiration, musicians get their inspiration. And what do the politicians want them all just to sit in their classrooms all day listening?
I think that is the way education was moving for a while, wasn't it? When all the educational reforms were brought in sort of about sort of 2013-ish. There was such a move towards like rote learning and the importance of memory and effectively sat at a desk listening to a teacher and learning that way, but at the same time you've got people criticizing and saying our young people don't have enough life skills. We're not, they need to go to the school of life. They don't know how to budget. They don't know how to. Well, if we don't take them to do these other experiences, they're not going to, are they?
If we don't take risks, even like coming on live radio, if we don't take the risks, how will they learn that it's okay to take risks?
Absolutely. You know,
I need to see us make mistakes on trips and recover from them. Not play it safe.
That's a really interesting element of it, though, because I do think school trips often students realise you're a human.
Yeah.
Because I think
too much sometimes.
Because I think so often you're just this person who exists particularly for secondary, you're that person who exists for 45 minutes. To
control their behaviour. And actually, though you have to control their behaviour on a school trip, you're also there as a human, like you say,
And that's particularly the case on residentials. I still think it's the case on, day trips, theatre trips, that sort of thing. But I think on residentials, because you're with them for an extended period of time, and you are in loco parentis, aren't you? So you're kind of building that relationship with them. They need to trust you because they don't have their parents there. They need to have somebody, a trusted adult that they can go to if they're having a bad time, if they've fallen out with their friends, or they've hurt themselves or something's happened. It changes the relationship, and I've seen that happen. I've been on a few residentials before my son was born. I went on residentials. I went on a water sports trip with the students. Which was...
tell me about how that went. I haven't heard about your water sports trip.
Oh my gosh, right. So I would just like to clarify, I'm not a sporty person in any way, shape or form.
You were in the sea when you came down to Cornwall with me.
I know. No, I'm sit on the beach with my book, watching other people do sports type of person. So I was happy to go on that trip in the kind of maternal sense, and they're like, I'll be there, I'll hold the bags, you guys go off, have a lovely time. But it was, so when I was asked to go on the trip, I was like, I'm not sure I'm the right person for this. But they were really keen for me to come, and I felt really flattered and honoured, so I went along. And it was in the May half term, and we were, bar one day, I think we were away for the whole of the May half term, and it was exhausting. Absolutely, you came back just more tired than you started half term.
So did you get involved?
No, I did not. I did not. I did exactly what I intended to do, and I stayed on the beach.
I was hoping that you'd say that somebody couldn't jump around with them, so you had to get into a costume and go for it. Because you never know what's going to happen on these trips. I did that. I jumped around on all the bouncy things, but without my contact lenses, I couldn't see. But one of the students said, "It's okay, I haven't got my glasses on either. You can come with us." And I went, "It'll be the blind leading the blind." And it literally was, as we were getting dragged out of the water by other students. But what a great day.
Like Piggy and Ralph at the end of Lord of the Flies.
Yes, it was like Piggy and Ralph. Amazing.
But it was honestly, it was such a great experience, because I went on the trip with members of staff that I didn't know that well, and came back just and one particular member of staff who was on that trip as well, who I really didn't know at all, and just he was such an absolute gem of a human, such a gentleman. It was so nice to spend time. We laughed so much. We were exhausted because we were up, sat in the corridors overnight, you know, making sure that nobody was leaving their rooms, nobody was, you know, causing any issues or whatever. So you're exhausted, but I think you laugh a lot because there's slight delirium in there.
You get the tiredness delirium.
But it was, you know, I think both things can be true. I think you can have a lovely time, but it also be incredibly hard work. To be responsible for other people's children on a trip is it's really intense to do that.
In that sense, I mean, yes, you can enjoy yourself with the children, but it's a conscious decision. I'm going to enjoy myself despite the fact that I'm carrying a bum bag with 50 envelopes of cash in it, or I'm going to enjoy myself. Although I'm carrying big medical, like we had a great big medical, big grey bags abroad, as well as little green bags on us the whole time. I'd like that former politician to try and have a jolly and sensible shoes, so you can go after somebody with somebody being sick. That's happened as well. I had to stop and hold someone's. Well, actually, that's happened a few times if someone's been sick on a long walking day or sick in the jungle or something. So you've got to get used to lots of sick on your jollies. And what's that? You might be sick yourself. I was sick abroad once, and the year 11s, we heard you throwing up all night. Oh, great. After a jungle trip where we all got sick. And also, what else do we have to carry? Oh, registers. We've got to do a register literally every hour or something.
It's so intense, isn't it? Because you are in charge of other people's children, and you have that absolute responsibility. You know that you've got to, if you've got 50 kids on a coach on the way there, you've got to get 50 kids back, and you've got to deliver 50 kids back, hopefully in one piece, to their parents at the other end of that trip. And the pressure of that, obviously you've got your ratios, you've got your members of staff, you've got 1 to 10 or whatever.
Sometimes it's not many though, is it? Like you can go on a trip where you really have very few staff compared to students, because you can't spare the staff a lot of the time, you know.
It's true, and I think that's why a lot of certainly the residentials take place over the school holidays, don't they? Because you cannot afford to have teachers.
So it comes out of your own holiday. So when I was throwing up in the jungle and holding hair and things like that, that was 3 weeks out of the time where I'd normally have time to sort of relax, rest, prepare, you know, catch up after a whole school year of, you know, of work. So I think it's a lot of teachers need that rest time, and also you know, it's that recovery time, I think, that you don't get if you go on a summer trip, because you're on hyper alert, aren't you? Remember the theatre trip we went on, and that was just a residential, but do you remember when we went to London to see was it Shrek we went to see?
What, when we got evacuated?
Yeah. We had all the, how many children did we have with us roughly that day?
We must have had a coach full. We must have had 50 students with us, because it was always you got 1 free staff ticket for every 10 student tickets, because obviously they know. This is the thing that kind of brings me into something else. We'll come back to the Shrek trip. I saw on a parent forum, I don't know why it's stupid, because I know that I'm going to come out of it with raised blood pressure, because teachers are always wrong.
Grey hairs, I've had grey hairs.
Like, no matter what decision you make, you're wrong. So I don't know why I do it to myself. But there was a comment that said about the cost of school trips, which, don't get me wrong, school trips are extortionate. Like especially some of the residentials, they're so expensive. And I just, you know, I think my son is 5 at the moment. We're not in that territory yet. I don't know if I will be able to justify in, you know, 9-10 years time. So even though I would desperately want for him to go, you know, ski trips, and, you know, they're so expensive. And I understand.
Have you ever been on a school trip? I've never been on a ski trip. We could never afford the ski trips.
No. I'm also really clumsy,
Yes,
Kate.
no.
You shouldn't go on a ski trip. You'd end up being airlifted off a mountain.
I would break a bone.
You would.
I'm
Kate.
so relieved that I could go. Also, my older brother went to France, and then my folks said, "Oh, it's sorry, but you can't go because he's already been, and that's all the budget for him to go." But I didn't mind because he brought back some French sweets. But that's why it's so important that we have funding for pupil premium students to go on these trips. I mean, it's the children that are young carers, pupil premium. They're the ones that should really be experiencing things that their parents wouldn't normally be able to take them to they wouldn't normally be able to go on holiday. But it seems that it's more at the moment. It's more the students that would go on holiday with their parents anyway that are getting to go with their friends as well.
It does.
Be more
It does.
balanced.
It becomes about affordability, doesn't it?
Yeah.
And it's just which it isn't a level playing field.
No.
It isn't, and there is pupil premium funding, and I have worked in schools where students who receive the pupil premium funding have been given priority on these trips, which is good.
But more, we need more.
That's the thing, isn't it? But all of these things are interconnected, aren't they? Because it all comes down to funding. A lot of these things come down to funding, and how even teachers doing the trips and running the trips and giving up the time and it having to happen in the holidays and things like that, and teachers aren't paid any extra for giving up their holidays. They're paid the same amount of money regardless. It's all
a lot
these
of
things.
A lot of teachers have second jobs. Like I work in the summer as well. I don't just have 4 weeks off, so I work on film sets and things like that, and I miss 3 weeks of that work to go on the jolly. I put that in inverted commas.
How very dare you?
The jolly, which involved writing in a medical book more than having a jolly time, really. But it was. I mean, it was challenging and brilliant, but it was intense. I wouldn't call it a jolly. It needed lots of rest and recuperation afterwards.
Yeah, it's. I think I can see both sides of the argument. I can see how important they are, but as a member of staff running trips, I do think it's becoming unsustainable for staff to be expected to do trips, and it's not through lack of willing at all, because the reason that we do this job, we do it for the young people. We don't do it for the politics or the admin or all the nonsense that happens outside of the classroom. We're in it for the young people, 100%. But what's taking away from that and young people getting those experiences is the admin around it. Like organising a school trip is absolutely crazy in terms of what you're expected to do, and we have these huge admin teams in schools now, like the biggest admin teams I think we've ever had in schools ever in my career at this point, and yet I'm still doing more admin as a teacher than I've ever done. And trips are a good example of that. You've got your evolve forms to fill in, your risk assessments, you've got to gather all the medical information, quite often you've got to have first aid training, because if if you don't have a first aid trained member of staff, you've got to go off and do that first aid training.
But guess who was head of first aid?
No.
3 days of health and safety training. So stop laughing. So what I mean, it's a lot of responsibility. I wouldn't change it though. I think we need school trips forever. I'm 100% behind school trips, both residential and just the little local trips to a shopping mall, anything where we take risks with students. I think most teachers are willing to take the risk and the responsibility to give the students those experiences, but it's we need to keep it as a sustainable thing, because looking back and not having school trips in your memory, we can't deny young people the memories that we enjoy, even the funny ones, like going to Flag Fen and seeing a piece of petrified wood and thinking, what is that? It has got better.
I think the memories are important. We've got to
shout out to Flag Fen. I know you've improved the student experience on the school trips. It's supposed to be really good now. But back when I was a student, it was just a bit of petrified wood in a tent.
Oh goodness. I think there is so many opportunities that come through trips. I mean, one of the trips that we run at my school currently is the mock trial competition, and so for anyone who's not familiar with the competition, it is really worthwhile getting involved in it. It's amazing. But we train up a team. They become the lawyers, they become the witnesses, they become everyone in a courtroom, and then they go to a real court and they perform it in a real court. And it's absolutely, like, it's unmatchable as an experience for young people in terms of thinking about a legal career. And you see how these kids develop over that process. You see their eyes widen as you take them into a court for the first time. Previously, we used to take them to court beforehand to sit in the public gallery. Paperwork and taking them out of school means that actually we haven't been allowed to do that, which is problematic. But they don't do it otherwise. They don't get that experience. And
it's better that they do it as opposed to just watch it. And I bet they learn. I'd love to see students take on those roles. That would really entertain me.
It's incredible. I cannot even begin to tell you. It's just amazing. And some of them are so young. When you do it with year 8 and year 9 students and you see them in massive venues like Crown Courts, and you see them stand up more confident than sometimes adults. And it's just remarkable. And I've had news recently that one of the students that we did this experience with, he was one of our barristers. He's been accepted to study law at Oxford.
Wow.
Which is where we did the competition as well. We did it at the Crown Court.
Congratulations for him. That's fantastic.
Oh my gosh. But my heart's beating really fast thinking about it, because I just think, oh my gosh, we provided him, my colleague Sue and I, we provided him with that experience, and now look at this, like, what doors it's opened. And not to say that he wouldn't have got there anyway, because he's so bright and so hardworking. He's incredible. But you just think, wow, what a privilege.
And that would have inspired his friends. That would have inspired his friends too. Did you notice the other children sort of responding to that in any way?
So his brother, funnily enough, joined the team in the younger year group and is thinking the same way now about his future career. It's just amazing. It really is amazing. We're going to pause briefly, and we're going to talk about the TTR newsletter. So have you subscribed to our weekly newsletter yet, Kate?
No, I have not. Do we have one?
Yes, it's called Soundbites and Insights, and it's delivered to 10,000 educators a week. It contains a curated selection of 4 standout TTR shows from the week, exclusive discounts and exclusive offers from our sponsors. Sign up on our website at ttrradio.org/newsletter.
Can you repeat that? Because I think I will definitely need to do this. Wait,
okay, so it is ttradio.org/newsletter.
So ttradio.org/newsletter. Okay, I've got it.
And this show is also brought to you in partnership with John Catt Educational, publishers of professional development books and resources that support great teaching and learning in schools around the world. Level up your professional development today and visit johncattbookshop.com to explore the full range of titles. Use the code JCTTR2425 for 20% off your order.
Can you just repeat the name of the books and the...
I can. It is the johncattbookshop.com.
How do I spell that?
JOHNCATT.
TT, right? Yeah.
Bookshop.
Yeah.
And the code is JCTTR2425, and that will give you 20% off your order.
JCTTR242525.
2425.
That's my dyscalculia kicking in. 2425. The reason I got you to clarify that is because I listen to a lot of podcasts and radio shows, and I can never catch the numbers quick enough or the names. And sometimes, like for this one, I'm really keen to explore the offers and things like that. So I wanted to catch it all. So thank you for that. I won't do that every time.
I have to work out a way to put it on the screen.
Yeah.
Right, so I want to come back to the Shrek trip.
Oh yes,
because
oh, I love this anecdote.
All I remember about that trip is the evacuation, because I just remember
there was a fire scare. What was it? Was it the old theatre? Which was it?
It was the what was it? On Drury Lane.
Drury Lane.
It was on Drury Lane, yeah. And it was oh my gosh, just so deeply, deeply terrified, because obviously you're just filtering out through every exit, because it's an emergency situation. So we weren't with our students. They were all going in different. I was like, are we going back into the theatre? We're in the middle of the West End. It's the evening. What are we going to do? And that's all I remember about that trip. I don't remember the performance. I don't remember anything.
Okay, I remember on that trip. So before we even had the fire scare, this is the thing about school trips. The students also get used to things not always going well. And I remember that trip we got there. We had about 50 kids, and it was Shrek with Amanda Holden, who's amazing. Shout out to Amanda Holden. She's just incredible. But she was the princess, but Shrek, she had to come on stage and say to all our students and all the other students in the theatre, there's no Shrek. I think Shrek was ill, and then they had to make up another Shrek with all the green makeup. So what we were waiting, and she came on stage and she was doing questions and answers. And this really, really little girl goes, she looked beautiful, by the way. She looked very young and very beautiful. But this little child puts her head up and she says, I've got a question. And Amanda Holden, as the Princess Fiona or whatever she's called, says, hey, what's your question? And she says, are you the oldest princess in the universe or in the world or something? And then after that, everyone was laughing. She was laughing. Then there was this fire scare. And suddenly we were all looking at each other like, okay, what are we going to do with our children if they disappear off into London out of a different exit? But they all stayed together, and then, yeah.
It was fine. It was fine. Everyone got returned to their parents at the end. It was absolutely fine. But
our hearts and our grey hairs,
it speaks to the stress of running a school trip, though, that all I can remember is that evacuation and every exit and the sound of the siren, and that's all I can remember. It's obviously created some trauma.
That's probably why I remember the funny bit, because I think what it showed me as well is that actors have to think on their feet and show resilience. I mean, being in Shrek with all those children there waiting for it to start, and they're not having a Shrek. Can you imagine that pressure? And then doing live question and answers as a celebrity with an audience that can ask you anything and throw you. And yet she had the humour and the resilience to bounce back and make that fun. So when there was the fire scare, I thought it's going to be okay. We just have to ride this raft. But walking out into a crowded street in London and thinking, okay, now we've got to find all these individual kids. That was definitely something else. But it all worked out because we all kept our cool, and the children saw that. And I think, if anything, it built stronger relationships.
I do, and I think you do realise on trips how amazing young people are, because ultimately they don't want to get lost.
No,
they don't. They are teenagers are very, very overconfident in lots of ways sometimes. But I think when you put them in a situation where they feel vulnerable, all of a sudden they're children again, and they need that reassurance. They need to know where you are. They need to
adults, yeah.
And again, but that's all part of the responsibility, isn't it? You just feel that terrifying sense of responsibility. You know, when you have your own child, I just think, making sure I know where he is all of the time when we're out and about, when places are busy and things like that, like keeping my eye on him, he's mine, like I'm just one, is sometimes terrifying. And yet being in charge of 50 of other people's children is somehow more terrifying in a weird way.
Well, it makes sense, because you can predict the behaviour of Oliver, can't you? You can do that, whereas you can't predict the behaviour of everybody else's kids, because you don't know them as well. So you don't know when they might get upset or anxious in the same way as you would your own child. So it's difficult. It's harder. I mean, even just looking after my nephews, like I think I told you about when I had them round not long ago, and we'd all had a brilliant time. They're all sort of under 15, and we'd been playing in the play park. The youngest is 7 or 8 now, I think. And we were playing in the play park and playing on the beach, all fine. And then in my living room, just before my little brother came to collect them, just as he was literally at the front door, I could hear him at the front door. And Hudson took a nosedive into my coffee table and was screaming. David comes up the stairs. I'm having a complete freak out. Like, oh my goodness, is he concussed? My little brother's like, it's okay. He's always bashing himself. He'll be fine. Come on, Hudson, let's go home. And meanwhile, I'm in absolute bits. So it really is, and he was fine, and it was just a bump on the head. But it's when you've got to be so careful. You can't just dismiss somebody else's child as having a bump on the head. You've got to get it checked out. You've got to make sure they haven't got, not that they didn't check him out, but you know what I mean? It's a whole different ball game, essentially, having somebody else's child.
It absolutely is. It just, I don't know. Theatre trips, I think, are brilliant because I think cultural experiences are valuable, so valuable for young people. And I think the price of theatres, particularly nowadays, I think it's pricing a lot of people out of going. Families can't afford to go because it, to take a family of 4 will, cost somewhere in the region of £200. People can't justify that, understandably. And so when you get reduced price tickets through schools, so you are able to, you can justify that and with your child doing it. And I think so often now we're doing theatre trips because they're linked to curriculum. Because the paperwork is so heavy and because it's really hard for us to do that. And actually in the old days, we used to just take The Woman in Black. We did study The Woman in Black. It was on the curriculum for a little while. And so we would go and see.
I love The Woman in Black.
Oh my gosh, what an experience to go to the theatre to see The Woman in Black.
Terrifying.
We used to run that trip every year. And it used to be massively oversubscribed because the rumours would pass from year to year about how great the trip was. So you would run it year on year. It would fill. I remember one year we had to run a second trip because it was oversubscribed by double. So we knew we could fill another coach. So we had to run another one. But again, that's amazing of schools, isn't it? We could easily have gone, no, sorry. First come, first served, not happening. That's another thing actually we should talk about. We should talk about how trips are selected. I think that's quite a controversial process sometimes. But
back to Women in Black, because I want to hear more about this, because I remember you guys talking about there was a particular Women in Black trip. And you but yeah, so didn't you say something about the kids were cocky to begin with? I remember years ago.
Every single year when you take young people to see The Woman in Black, they watch horror films, they know it all. They're not scared. Of course they're not scared. And we would say to them, I promise you will be terrified. It's in the room with you. It's not on a screen, it's in the room with you. You will be scared. No, won't be scared. And year after year after year, they'd be terrified. Absolutely terrified. And the coach home would be silent where they're all processing their trauma.
I think for anyone who hasn't been to see The Woman in Black, I remember going to see it at the Hall for Cornwall with my dad, actually. And what freaked me out was in that particular production, the rocking chair bits, without wanting to give too much away, and certain people from the production, won't say who or what, coming into the audience and wandering around. And it was very interactive and terrifying. And it's one thing watching a film or reading a book, but to actually have a character from that horror story, almost creeping up behind you is a whole other game.
It absolutely is. It's so deeply terrifying.
Brilliant.
And just seeing them hold each other's hands, like virtually leap into each other's laps.
Who's holding hands? What was the...
Oh, it was just, there were a couple of boys in my tutor group who'd been so cocky on the way on the coach, and I was sat behind them in the theatre and they were holding on to each other for dear life. And so it was brilliant.
Here she comes.
Absolutely brilliant. And then but we would not, I can't believe we did this. We would not get away with this now.
Tell
But
me.
we
this was
so
after I left, I think, because
I don't know if you remember this.
Well, I've heard rumours about something that you guys, a prank you played after the Women in Black.
So on the day of the Woman in Black trip, we asked, or we decided that one of the teachers in the department, because the classrooms faced out onto the school field, and we would always go in the winter when the nights closed in earlier, and it would get quite misty on the field. So our colleague dressed up as the Woman in Black and stood like at the end of the school field.
So what, a male or female teacher?
A female teacher dressed as the Woman in Black and stood on the field, like quite a distance away.
But just kind of... I'm thinking of the very tall English teacher. Amazing.
And so had all the blinds up, and then there was just like a casual spotting of what's that in the distance, and as you could probably imagine, all hell broke loose.
Was she wearing like a black sort of cloak and a mask?
Yeah, she had a black veil on and things like that. My gosh, I can't believe we did it, really. Like it was funny.
If I'd been a student and I looked out the window in the mist after going on the Women in Black trip and seeing what I thought was the Women in Black, I would probably have a heart attack. So shout out.
That was over 10 years ago. I don't know what we were thinking. I don't know.
You were bringing the book to life, and I think
that's what we were trying to do. We were trying to give an enriching experience.
They'll never forget that. Do you remember when we thought we saw the Woman in Black out of the window? They'll never forget.
Yeah, and that's true.
By that writer as well. So
it circles back to what we were saying, doesn't it? Right there.
Susan Hill. I'm trying to get the right. Sorry, menopausal memory.
so fun. But yeah, very, very. Yeah, we wouldn't get away with that now. But it's a bit like.
Oh, sorry, after you, go for it.
It's a bit like school trips when we were younger. Like the things now, I don't suppose that they had the risk assessments to do and things like that. 90s was a different time.
Not to the extent. It's the 90s. It was a different time. What was your favourite? So I remember. What was your favourite school trip? Do you remember? There was something in particular that stood out. Because I didn't go. You didn't go to France, or did you?
I did. Yeah, year 11.
Oh, you did. Where did you go?
We went to Paris when we were 16. Lovely. It was our post GCSE trip. And yeah, we had such a good. It was brilliant. It was so nice, and I think because you're 16 and we'd effectively left school kind of at that point, and so it was a little bit freer and easier, and it was brilliant. We had such a good time, and the teachers were amazing. I remember one of the teachers who went on that trip was one who through school I hadn't really got him, as it were. He didn't appeal to me at all, but being on that trip with him just changed my opinion of him entirely. And I think that is what happens on school trips. The relationships that you build with students, they just see you completely differently. They see you as a human. They understand that.
Do you think it would have been better to do that trip when you were do that trip with student? Do that trip when you were in year 10, so that you would have had more insight into that teacher then, rather than just after you left, though? Maybe, do you see what I mean? Like, I don't know. Wouldn't it have helped your GCSE more to do it earlier rather than?
I don't know if that particular trip, because that trip was just all about experience, really.
It was jolly, joking.
Yeah, it was.
But also, did you go on to study French?
No.
That doesn't prove my point either. Okay, this is where we're on live radio, and if it was a GCSE question, I think we would have overdone the rebuttal there. But yes.
Well, since we are live, if anyone has any stories, anecdotes they want to share, you are listening to Teachers Talk Radio. Comment, message in, like, subscribe. Let us know if there's anything related to trips that we can share with others.
We'd love to hear crazy anecdotes about school trips, like Liz's Woman in Black trip. Think anything. I mean, you don't have to mention names of schools or teachers, but we'd love to hear about or when you were a child, what school trip did you enjoy the most? I remember mine wasn't very exotic, but I remember learning a lot and loving. We went to Jorvik Viking Centre. Have you ever been there, Liz? We went on a trip there, and what you do is you go in these almost like a ghost train, little carriages, and you go backwards in time. I don't know if they're still running it. I hope they are. But you go backwards in time to a Viking village, and they had back then, they had sort of mannequins like serving fish, or you go actually through the interactive village, and they had all the smells of a Viking village, really pungent, horrible market smells, or but it was so memorable for kids. We're all going, "Ugh, what's that?" And but you're learning about it in a very interactive, exciting way, and that sort of stuck with me. It fired up my imagination. And when we got back to school, we did creative writing and history and English about, imagine you're in a Viking, or perhaps you're working in a Viking market, or you're creating jewelry. Write about it from that perspective. So it really, really brought it to life. It's pretty cool.
And that's it. It does, doesn't it? It does. Again, we're back to that word enrichment, aren't we? We're back to that concept of these trips should be. I think for the students, they should kind of be jollies, really, in a way.
Yes, they should enjoy themselves as well.
They should enjoy it, because I think learning does come from enjoyment. I think when you think back to the lessons that you remember at school, so often they're linked to your enjoyment of a subject, of a teacher, of an activity. And I think that's kind of where education's going a little bit wrong now. I think we've just become so obsessed with data and results and outcomes that we're forgetting that ultimately this is about young people learning, and we want them to remember things for life. I don't want them to remember things to pass an exam. Like, actually, that's not particularly how. Yes, okay, it gets results, and I think it's possible to do both. Actually, I think it's possible for someone to successfully pass an exam and remember because they've enjoyed their learning. And I think we've got. I don't know if it's COVID that did it, or if it was already kind of in motion before COVID. But I feel like I teach from the front of the classroom so much now.
There is a lot of that, copy me thing, which is good. You need the balance. I mean, a lot of schools are using visualizers now and things like that. And yes, that gets the results. Children learn to copy, learn to follow, however, and do their own writing. And that's all very important. However, you need the balance of the enjoyment as well, because like you said, the chap who's going off to be a lawyer at Oxford, he'll have the results through school, through the exams, the tests and all that sort of thing. But also the passion, the fire in the belly comes from the enjoyment, the experience. And also, can we talk about the moral compass here as well, the being a good human? We don't want to be producing bad eggs from a bad egg factory where they've just listened. They haven't developed their thinking skills. They haven't developed their resilience. They're just listening to teachers, parroting structural devices or learning a formula, just because the pressure's on us teachers to get our grades up, to show what a great teacher we are, so the school business keeps us in, so that the parents then want the children to go to the business. It's becoming like the firm, isn't it? When actually what we want is to fire up that passion in students. Like, we're passionate about English. We want to inspire our students to feel passionate. And how do you do that? Through humour, through being the woman in black, through taking them to see Shrek if they want to be an actor, and learning to be a decent human being. You want somebody to be a lawyer, but you want them to be a good lawyer with a heart who cares about people.
And I think, morality is an element, and I almost feel like in society that's something that I just feel. I mean, God, that's another discussion altogether, isn't it? But the way society is moving, I think we really do need to be bringing young people up to be good, moral people.
Citizens, global citizens.
I think there are trips that do enable that as well. We've just had a trip come back from the battlefields, which I went on about 10 years ago, which I found a pretty life-changing. as an experience. And I think, and there's
Tell
another
me
trip.
about that one, because I didn't do that. I know that my dad used to go with it just to, you know, for himself. But I would love to do more.
If you get an opportunity to go on one, I really do recommend it, because it's one of those things. Once when I went to the Natural History Museum, I saw the dinosaur skeletons and had a realization that dinosaurs no, bear with me, that
The world was flat. No,
that the dinosaurs were real. And it wasn't that I didn't accept that they were real. It wasn't that I didn't know that they were real. It's that the magnitude of it was like,
the size.
Yeah, that's what it was.
Wow.
And then it was a bit of an epiphany for me. And the battlefields was like that. It was exactly like that. It was, I am in all these things that I've learned about in history. This is real. This is where it happened. And we stood in the Somme. We stood in the remnants of a trench, and you were lined up with all of the students. We had 60 students on that trip, and you could have heard a pin drop. And it was so, and you saw the magnitude of it for those students. You saw the reality of the fact that young people, young boys, not much older than them, were stood where they were stood and went over and went to their deaths. And that was it. And you could feel that reality descending on it. Descended on me, and you could feel it descending on them, and it changes you. And I know my first school that I worked at, they used to run an Auschwitz trip every single year. That RE students used to go, and they used to go to Auschwitz. And I remember students coming back from that trip and the teacher saying, they'll never be the same. Because I don't think you can be. I think you learn about these things, and it is one thing to learn about it and look at these black and white pictures, and I just feel that sometimes gives it a bit of an emotional distance. And then as soon as you're physically in a place where those atrocities that you've learned about, that you've only heard about, you've seen pictures, you've talked about, suddenly it's very, very real. And I don't think there's any replacement for that. I don't think sitting in a classroom can replace that.
You just spoke about that so eloquently, and very movingly, actually. We're still teaching power and conflict, thank goodness, in English, and so you know, it's really a way to bring these dead poets to life again. Dead Poet Society time, but 100%. And I think, the Auschwitz trip. I saw a friend of mine went on that trip at school, and she wasn't the same when she came back. It was. We have to also remember that we have a duty of care, and it's so important that students learn about these things. But also, some of the students can, be a little bit traumatized. So it's important that we then do the follow up on those.
But I think
so important though, and also in a world with truth, fake news, and truth, they need to see it for themselves. They don't believe everything they hear anymore.
Absolutely that. And I think the kind of trauma element of it, and obviously like we've made light of the woman in black thing that we did and things like that, but I just think
there's children now seeing therapists because of that. I'm just kidding.
I know. I honestly sometimes I do think about that. I do, like it worries me. But I think that we are so aware of the impact of trauma, mental health, things like that, that actually it will prevent experiences like this happening, because it can have quite a profound emotional effect on you. And so obviously the argument potentially is we need to be developing resilience in young people. History happened. Like, we can't shield people from history. In fact, it's a mistake to shield people from history, because we have to learn about it. We don't want it to repeat.
War games. Oh, we're bored. We're going to vote for somebody who wants war because that will be entertaining. No, not until you.
I think we just have to. We again, it's that duty of care. It's that responsibility that we have to do those things. And so many responsibilities are falling to schools for so many different things. Why shouldn't we be responsible for these things as well? But of course, it comes at a cost. It comes at a cost of teachers' time, energy, extras, going above and beyond. It is above and beyond when teachers are doing these things. And
And also there are parents that will happily get online and bash teachers for the slightest mistake on a school trip as well. You know, if their child is able to get access to something they shouldn't do, you know, all the teachers were not vigilant enough. So as teachers, you're under an incredible amount of pressure not
Absolutely.
to get bashed online as well, when actually all you're trying to do is give the children an experience. However, when I got back from a long residential trip, I do remember the parents cheering when the coach came up, and the amount of parents that came up and said, "Thank you for supervising my mischievous child or teenager and allowing them to explore life safely with their friends, with you guys, in a way that would have probably been a bit more dangerous if they, well, it would have been a lot more dangerous if they hadn't been supervised. At least they were being supervised when they went to try that thing or take that risk. You know, they weren't just going off on their own. They were with people. So it's a safe way to explore life and your rites of passage and things like that.
And those thank yous,
get hold of stuff.
Those thank yous mean the world. Like that's it's just such a simple thing. But for, you know, when kids thank you, I mean, when kids thank you on the way out of a classroom, it's lovely. But, you know, when they thank you when they're getting off a coach at the end of a trip, or when parents go out of their way to say thank you, that honestly, it makes it worth it, because you're just like, oh, you know, I'm so glad you enjoyed it. I'm so glad it what it becomes worth the time. It becomes worth the effort because they got something out of it. I
don't care how, like, I know it's important that we're all paid enough to live, but as I'm a tutor now in a school, and I get more satisfaction, although, you know, obviously we need decent wages to exist and things, but from, like you said, like after a school trip, after that long residential trip I mentioned, and where I'd had some of the year 11 boys, we heard you throwing up kind of thing, and you think, oh God, no. But then you're back in school, you're in a busy corridor, it's another Monday, normal school day in an institution, you know, and everyone's just in their uniforms, and then somebody will wave at you, and it'll be somebody from the trip you've been on where they saw something hilarious, or you bounced off an inflatable into the pool with them, or you helped them with a bullying situation by encouraging them to make different friends or work on their relationships with those other students. And you'll get this big beaming smile and a wave. And that is the job satisfaction. That's more important to me than any other reward. I know that sounds extremely cheesy. And yes, we need to make sure that teachers are recognised and tutors are recognised financially. But I think that's really what keeps you doing and enjoying the job, isn't it? It's that relationship, that connection that you get with the young people.
I think that sums up education generally, doesn't it? I think that is why we do it. I think we said earlier, you do it for the young people. You certainly don't do it for anything else. It's very much about the young people are at the heart of everything that you choose to do. And ultimately, you know, as teacher burnout increases, as people leave the profession, as, you know, as goodwill wanes, which it's waning at the most rapid rate that it has in my entire career at the moment, because people are just going, no, I'm not doing that anymore. You can't ask me to do any, I can't give anymore. And as that rises, these opportunities are going to go, because, and even for me, like, I used to organize trips all the time, and I love them. I love the opportunities. I love it, but I can't justify it. I can't. I'm just like, I've got so much marking. I've got this. I've got, you know, I've got forms to fill in. I've got this paperwork. I've got 17 emails to send. I can't do this as well.
And that's why I think it's important that we fight for the trips. So if you look at those adverts, get into teaching, you could inspire young people, and it's all like a happy teacher. Talk about jolly. It's a joyful advert, isn't it? They have a joyful tone. An environment of a positive environment of learning. How do you build those relationships? Through time, through school trips, through understanding. It would be a different advert if it showed the amount of time students are stuck behind their desks, wouldn't it? And the amount of paperwork teachers have to do. So in order to encourage people to come into teaching, we need to really have some joyful things. In terms of a jolly, a jolly to me would be somewhere where you could relax a bit more, you know, in flip-flops, maybe some fancy shoes. I mean, I wonder how the politicians would react if we loaded them up with all the paraphernalia we've got to carry. And say,
a jolly for
have a
me,
jolly with this bag, with this clipboard, with these shoes, you know.
a jolly for me does not involve supervising 50 teenagers.
Yes.
No.
That's not, I don't know what the former politician's idea of a jolly is.
But I think a lot of it.
If it's having a bum bag the size of Wales, I don't think she's quite got this. And sick bags and sun cream and water. You're a pack horse, basically.
Oh my goodness.
A joyful pack horse, but a pack horse.
I think it's hindsight with these trips. I think you look back and you're like, oh my God, that was actually amazing. I really enjoyed that so much. I think that's the point at which you look back on them fondly. At the time when you're living it, you're just living on your nerves the entire time.
I was exhausted after the last school trip. I mean, it was fantastic. I learned so much, but it was intense. It was challenging. And there was an element of survival about it. There always is, even with, like we said, with the Shrek trip. Well, we survived that evacuation. But then what a great story for the children to remember. Oh, do you remember the time we went to see Shrek and Shrek was late and then there was a fire scare and the teachers were cooking themselves?
But I don't know if they will remember us being stressed, because we probably didn't transfer that to them, because you wouldn't, because
you were so calm. In hindsight, we were very calm. It's like the newsreaders with their feet going under the desks, though.
Yeah, yeah. And it's like
they're using calm, but under the desk, their feet are going like little flippers.
It's like me with spiders. I don't want my son to be scared of spiders, so I try to be really calm. Whenever I see a spider, I calmly put it outside. You know, we're not going to destroy them. We're not going to destroy the spider. But actually, I'm like, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. Terrified of spiders. So it is, you're irresponsible, and so you don't want them to panic. So you are the picture of calm. I can't believe we've managed to talk about this for nearly an hour.
It's been a joy. I'm here with my tea mug, which is actually a gift from some tutees that they were two Italian twins and they loved puns. So it says, "You're looking sharp," with a cactus, because you know, we teach students about humour and puns for persuasive language as well, and things like that. And yeah, just keeping things funny, I think, is really important as well. And
I think those are the things that they remember. They remember the teachers with personality. They remember the experiences in relation to that made them laugh, that made them feel strong emotions. I think that's what causes memories, isn't it? That's what creates the core memories.
Yeah, and those Italian students, they could shine on the Italian trip because, you know, that when you've got English as a second language and you're struggling in school, imagine how wonderful it feels when suddenly you're in your element. You know, you're swimming and everyone else is struggling with the language, and suddenly you're saying, this is me, this is how, you know, how I can help you now. So there is the importance of international trips for that reason as well, letting everybody experiment and explore how it feels to be the one that's struggling, perhaps.
Everybody gets their moment to shine. Yeah. Well, we've got 2 minutes left. So before we close, I am just going to remind everyone about the possibility of subscribing to our weekly newsletter. It's called Soundbites and Insights, and it's delivered to 10,000 educators every week. It contains a curated selection of 4 standout TTR shows from the week, exclusive discounts and exclusive offers from our sponsors. You can sign up on our website, which is ttradio.org/newsletter. And this show is also brought to you today by John Catt, educational publishers of professional development. They're resources that support great teaching and learning in schools around the world. So you can level up your professional development today and visit johncattbookshop.com to explore the full range of titles. Use the code JCTTR2425 for 20% off your order. Kate, it has been an absolute pleasure.
Yeah, I can't wait for the next one now.
It's been really, really nice. I've thoroughly enjoyed it. We hopefully will be back in a couple of weeks with something else to talk about. So the idea is that we're here fortnightly. If there is anything that you would like to see discussed, drop us a comment, like, subscribe, follow wherever you are, YouTube, X, LinkedIn. Let us know what educational things particularly grind your gears, and perhaps we can have a conversation about that in a couple of weeks.
Yes, that would be fantastic to hear people's views as well. And if you've agreed or disagreed with anything we've said, we'd also love to hear from you. That would be fantastic. And shout out to Ruth and Jess, fellow teachers today, who are listening, I think. So that's really exciting.
Thank you so much for tuning in. Take care. Have a good week. Bye, everyone.